Sometimes you just can't sleep. The mind is alive, and the mind has its own clock. And my clock said, you got to get this off your mind if you want to sleep. So, what's the idea? That the Zohar says an amazing thing, the ancient book of Kabbalah, that there are selfish angels. That's what I like to call them. 500, 1,000 years ago, they used to call them demons. They're selfish angels, spiritual forces attached to mirrors. Really? Does that sound crazy enough for you? Mirrors, glasses that show you an image of yourself. And there's selfish spiritual forces attached to mirrors. Well, maybe instead of judging the idea first, let's talk about it. Let's open up the idea. What does it mean? A selfish spiritual force that's attached to a mirror. That I look in the thing and I feel an urge of ego. I look in the mirror and feel false power, vanity, narcissism. Of course, Narcissus first saw his own image in a pond, and he fell in love so hard that he fell into the pond. Didn't make it out. Maybe there was a same selfish spirit over that pond. Poor Narcissus. He just became a big label in psychology. What's really going on? It's a mirror. It's a piece of glass that reflects us back to us. It's not a living entity. We in Kabbalah define or design by design that angels are living entities. They have time, space, and they have a realm. That's what life is. They have consciousness to their degree, to what software they're given. I don't know if they're running Windows 47, but they're pretty good. So what's happening? This piece of glass is now a conduit of a demon in the 15th century. Or maybe it's something else that we don't quite understand. But let's try. What is a selfish angel? Well, it's something I created from my selfishness. Because the ancients tell us, the masters teach us, that when you do a good deed, you create a good angel, which, let's use today's language, it's a positive, giving force. And if you do a bad deed, then you create the opposite, this selfish force that we're calling a negative angel. So when I look in the mirror, what am I looking at? Think about it. What am I looking at when I look in the mirror? I'm looking at my face, my eyes, my eyebrows. Maybe I used to have some hair up there. It got lost, I think. What am I looking at? I'm looking at the sum total of those forces that I created through either selfish or selfless deeds. And so the glass, the mirror, is reflecting who I am back to me. But wait, if you do only good deeds, it would stand to reason that your reflection would shine back to you a great light. And yet we're defining the force of the angel of the mirror as negative, as a selfish thing. But we have to go deeper, I think, to understand this. That there's basically two directions to the spiritual energy between human beings and to a lesser degree animals, the higher animals especially. What happens when you put a monkey or an ape, you've seen the videos, in front of a mirror? They think it's something else that's coming to attack it. So the gorilla gets very quickly defensive, and then the big strong gorilla, he's going to attack that gorilla in the mirror until he figures it out that there's nothing there. So that on one level, the demon of the mirror is a reflection of my relationship to myself. That if I'm selfish, I'm going to see, I'm going to create, I'm going to bounce off the glass. That's selfishness. And if I'm vain, it's going to bounce back vanity. And if I'm lusty, it's going to bounce back more lust. And if you're kind and loving and patient, maybe you'll receive that also from the mirror. And we know that the energy we send out to the world, it's always going to bounce off something and come back. And that is why in the Kabbalah, one of the traits of God is compared to a mirror. Which trait? The trait of kingship. That what is the king's job? To reflect the people to themselves so that they can see themselves more clearly, more honestly. And when you have such a king who's truly righteous, as we, the human race, have such a king who is truly righteous, who's able to equally, fairly reflect every being back to itself, so that being can gain self-knowledge. Because the only way we can advance in this world is with self-knowledge. You can learn a lot of disciplines and get a lot of PhDs, but without self-knowledge, you're going to be a dangerous being to yourself and others. But when we get self-knowledge, and that knowledge is true, we're actually gaining a piece of God's knowledge for us. So your self-knowledge becomes godly knowledge. And that's a thing worthwhile. And that's why the great rabbi didn't even recognize himself in a mirror, because he never looked in a mirror, because he was so far from vanity. He was so attached to the creation that he didn't take vanity from creation. And each of us have to work on what we have to work on. Whatever we bring to the mirror, it's coming back. So the more that we purify that image in our heart and in our mind, that's what's going to fly back. And that's what's going to project into the world. And that's going to be good for everyone. All the best.